What is up, guys and girls? It is Will here from nerdy.org, and today I am showing you how to write prepared queries. We're going to do a sample here for a new, which is an insert query. We're going to select from the database. We're also going to update and delete. And so I'm going to show you all those queries, and then I'm also going to show you an awesome tool that I built a while ago that will help you learn how to build prepared queries if you're not comfortable right now. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing I'll do is actually just go and create a new sample table, and so I'll give it a column called ID, and it's going to auto increment. It's going to be our primary key to identify each row of the table. And we're going to put name here, varchar 255, and we'll make that a unique column, meaning that it can't exist already. And then we're going to put content. We'll just do varchar 2550, and this can all stay the same, but we'll have a default of null, meaning if we don't insert content, this will be null. And lastly, we will do timestamp, and this is going to show the insert/edit time. So on insert, the default is the current timestamp, and when we update it, it will update to the current timestamp as well. Alright, perfect. So the first thing that we need to do is actually insert into this, and so I have this sample page here. If I just do that, nothing pops up. But if I do echo test, and then go over here, now it says test, so we know it's working. The files here are connecting me to the database, so I can already do some things. So I'm going to create a variable called new, and it's going to equal db, which is my database variable, and I'm going to write prepare, because I'm preparing an SQL query. And there's a few ways to do this, but I'll show you the best way and the most secure way, and it's not hard at all. So insert into table. So for us, that's sample. And right after that, we're going to put the columns in parentheses. And so we're just going to have the name column and the content column, and then values, and then another parenthesis set, question mark, comma, question mark, because there's two things being inserted and we're using bind param. So we end that with the close parenthesis, the quotation, and the semicolon, new, and then we do this, okay? And we're actually going to write bind underscore param, and then in quotations, we need to define this as a string, integer, or a double, which is like a decimal value number. It's called a float, right? All that stuff. Anyways, these are both strings, so I do ss, comma, and then I'm going to do name, content. And then up here, I'll just say name equals nerdy.org, and content equals hello. Hi? Okay. Cool. Alright, so now that we have that set up, we'll just do new execute, and that's going to execute our query here. Basically what happens with this bind param, it says, okay, take name and content, make sure that both of them match their type, so strings. So if this was the number 1, it would fail, because I would have to change this to I for integer, or D for a decimal kind of thing. Anyways, it's not a double, it's a string, so this all works out. And then what it does is it looks here and it says, okay, the first question mark is a string, and that's name. The second question mark is a string, and that's content. And then that first one lines up with the name column, and the second one lines up with the content column in the sample database. And that all gets executed right here. And then we can say if new, oops, there we go, affected rows is over 0, then we say echo success, else echo uh-oh, failed to insert, possibly a duplicate name, just to remind us that it is a unique value. So if I save that and press yes and reload, we can see success. If we go into our table, we can see that I've successfully done it. If I do it again, it says, uh-oh, failed to insert, possibly a duplicate name, and we see that it did not let us insert a second time because nerdy.org is already taken. That's great for usernames and things like that. Okay? And if we wanted to allow duplicates because the name is something non-unique, then we would just drop the unique on here. Hold on a sec. I have to go to operations. Where is it? Nope. Hold on, I'm trying to remember where all the keys are. It's been a while since I've messed with keys. Not there. There we go. Okay, so that's not unique anymore. If I reload this, it's a success. And now we have two that are there. Okay, so just for the heck of it, I'm going to say youtube.com. Oh, hi there. Okay, so now we have two unique values in the database. They all have their unique timestamps there. And if I update this, this will update. So the second thing that we're going to do is basically the same exact thing, but an edit statement. So we'll open up the edit document here, paste this, and we'll just get rid of all that so we can start over. So we're going to say edit equals db, prepare, just like the last time. And we're going to say update table. So update sample set, and then we're going to write column name, the first one we want to change. So we're going to say name equals that, comma, content equals this. Now, if I just run it like this, it's going to update everything in the database. So we need to add a where statement. So we say where ID equals, and we could say 1, 2, and I guess for this one we'll update the first row, nerdy.org. Actually, I'll keep that one. We'll do, doesn't really matter. Anyways, as you can see, you can put a raw integer in here. The main reason that you would do bind param is for taking content that's like coming from the user. So like if they put the value into a text box and they send it to you, you want to bind param just to make sure you're protected against SQL injection attempts and different various things like that. Something like this, for what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter, but for the sake of good habit, we'll do this because we'll pretend that maybe the ID is coming from a session variable or whatever you want to do. Okay. One thing I do want to show you though is that you can't just bind like a non-variable. So for ID to be, even if it's 1 here, I have to still say ID equals 1. I can't do bind param integer and then just write the number 1. If I can, I apologize that I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Anyways, bind param. The first one is s, second one is s, the third one is an integer, and we're going to do name, content, and ID. So name will equal Bobby, content will equal Sandlot is an interesting movie about a parking lot in the desert. Okay, perfect. And then edit, execute, and then we can say if edit affected rows is over 0, echo, whoops, successful edit, else echo, uh-oh, something failed, no edit. Okay, and so hopefully I can demonstrate that pretty clear here by going to the edit page, successful edit, refresh, and you can see oh, because I hit the new page before again, that's why. Anyways, the reason it's failing now is because there's nothing to update, because it's the exact same value. But if I put the number 2 in there and I reload it, it's a successful edit, right? So you can see that the number 2 is right there, and if I reload it fails, and that's because there's nothing to edit. Okay, so that is the edit function there with queries. And now the next one that I'm going to show you is going to be the delete query. And again, we will just take this right here. And just to show you real quick, actually, let's make ID equal 77 on edit before we move on. You'll see that this will fail, obviously, because there's nothing to edit. And that's that, okay? One other thing that's cool also is you can see here that this time updated. If you remember that this row was inserted originally as nerdy.org before YouTube. This is the third one here, but this row here was what this one used to be before we edited it, right? But the time is obviously now at 39 after instead of 34 or 35 after like it was before. So we know the timestamp is working on edit, so we can use that as like a last edit time if we needed to on a social network or something like that. Anyways, let's change this back to 1 for edit. Now let's take this over. Yep, already did that. We'll just remove it so we can go through it. And we're going to set the ID variable to 3. And we're going to say delete or del equals db prepare. Delete from table. In our case, it's sample. Where ID equals question mark. And then we'll say del bind param ID del execute if del affected rows is over 0 echo success, if not echo uh-oh, I could not delete that row. I could not delete row. No. Yeah, we could do that. Okay. We'll say what row. Save that. And now let's go to delete. We're going to have a successful delete. Row 3 is about to disappear. As you can see, it worked. If we wanted to test it again, we could just do new. Now we have a row back. Delete again. Refresh. Something failed. Oh, because row ID is now 4. That's right. We deleted one, created a new one, and now it has its own unique ID. There we go. Row 4 is deleted, and I created a new row 5. This will fail because there's no row 4. Alright, so that's our basic edit, delete, and insert. And last but certainly not least is our select statement, which just lets us read the information. And so we will say ID equals 1, and we're going to say read equals db prepare select name content from table. So sample, these are just column names as you remember. From sample, where ID equals question mark. Read, whoops, bind param. It's going to be an integer ID, read, execute. And then here's where the select statement is a little bit different than our edits, deletes, and inserts. We don't do the affected rows like we did before. Instead, we're going to do read, store result, and we're just storing our basic results that we get back from the executed statement. And then we say if read num rows is over 0, which is the same as affected rows, but it's the number of rows returned by our select statement. But we need to use store result before we can access that function. So if read num rows is over 0, we are then going to bind the result. And that's giving it some variables that we can use later on in the page. And then after we bind the result, we need to fetch the result, which allows the page to actually use them. And then we can just do read close, which just tells our little connection here, hey, we're done, we have our variables, we fetched them, we don't need you anymore, you can go away. And over here we'll say echo could not find that row. And now that we know we have the row, going down here, we can say echo name, or we could say echo name is name. And then we'll just do like a break tag in HTML. And the content is, we'll just do another break tag, content. So now we have a very, very basic thing being executed here on our select statement and a quick display. Name is Bobby and the content is Sandlot is an interesting movie about a parking lot in the desert 2. And all of that is 100% accurate to what is in the database. And that is all looking quite nifty. If I switch this to the number 2, oh sorry, I forgot I accidentally, there we go, save this. Alright, now it's hooking up to row 2, which is youtube.com. Oh, hi there. And so that's a basic select statement. And then just to demonstrate what happens if we delete the row that we want, let's say we want row 5, but we're going to delete row 5 first. Well, first I guess I'll show you row 5, and then we'll delete row 5. And then now it says could not find that row. Now, when you're actually using these, you don't really want to echo out these kind of things. You're going to want to use it intelligently, you know, whether that triggers them being redirected, or, you know, if you're doing this in a PHP page and then echoing out something that you're then interpreting with JavaScript because it's an AJAX kind of thing, then you're going to be able to manipulate the view based on this kind of stuff. But I just wanted to demonstrate the core functionality of these things. And then you guys can actually put them to use with forms that take information to update their data, you know, if users are logging in, or to remove data if they want to delete something or select stuff. The other thing I could do actually, just real quick, I'll show you. If I remove the ID here and then I move bind to param, I can then do this while read fetch, because this is basically saying, since I don't have an ID attached to it or anything, that I'm going to have multiple results. And so then if I take this over here and just move it, I can say that basically for everything in the database, echo it out like that. And so if I just add a quick HR tag here just to break up each entry, you'll see what I mean. So I can see each entry there. In fact, if I just create a few new ones, you'll see. So now I have a bunch. Okay? Similarly, if I then go to edit and I remove the ID statement and remove all evidence of it being a bound parameter, I mean, that can stay there, it's fine, it's not being used though. And then I go to edit, let's go to a new one. Whoops. Edit.php, you'll see that they have all edited to the same exact thing because I did not supply an ID. And they all have a similar update time. This one does not because it didn't need to be updated because it was the exact same from before. So now when I go to select, you can see they're all the same. And if I make a new one, you can see there's one that's not the same. But if I edit them all again, they're all the same. New one, there's an extra one. And finally, to close this all out, let's go to our delete function and just get rid of the where statement. Get rid of the bind to param, save it, go here, and now we should have an absolutely empty database. Nothing in there at all until we create a new one. Delete, nothing to see, and now he can't delete anything. It says row 5, but really the ID is not actually being used, so we just get rid of that, and it will give us the proper error code. Make some new ones, and we're good. Okay, finally, the last thing I want to show you is a thing called QueryPro. And QueryPro is a tool that I made to allow you to make these relatively easy. So if we take this for example, or we'll do our new one, it doesn't really matter, but you can see here that our query variable was new. Our database variable was DB, and this is select. We need to go to insert. Here we go. Our variable was new. Connection variable is DB. We're inserting into the table sample. Our columns were name and content. They were both strings. We had the variable name and content. And there we go. If you actually look here, look at what I have right here. It's exactly, well, not exact, but almost exact to what I have. New equals DB, prepare, insert into sample, name, content, values, question, bind param, ss, name, content, execute. The only thing here I did that I should have showed you is that you can use new insert ID to get the ID of the new row, and that's pretty cool as well. If you set up an auto-incremented primary key kind of scenario in your table, you can use insert ID to get that new ID. So you could, for example, insert a new ID and then immediately just use that ID in another way if you needed to insert data about that new row in a separate table, for example. Anyways, this tool right here is very, very nifty in the sense that you can generate queries quite quickly. That's an insert. Here's a select. So I can do read equals DB, and I'll do a loop results just because that's the last one that we did. And we got the columns name and content from the table sample, and we did where ID equals something at first, but we actually took that out because we wanted all of them, right? And we didn't do an order by, but we could actually order them in a certain way, so we get them in a certain order, for example by time stamp if we wanted to get them in the most recent order, or we could write our own custom order by here. Or you can also limit it if you only want to get a few of them, like the first 5. You could have an offset of 0 to start from the beginning, for example. And if you wanted a limit of 5, you would put 5 there, and it will update all the query stuff. But that's a little bit more advanced. This is really basic stuff here, so I'm just sticking to that. Both of our columns are strings, name and content, and we wanted to actually bind them to the variables name and content. And as you can see, oh, sorry, I don't have any bind param variables. Need to get rid of that. That's the one thing that is buggy, is that if you don't have bind param, you do have to remove it. Besides that, though, you'll see right here, if I go into my actual select query here, just make it a little smaller. That's real small. So we have read equals DB prepare, select name, content from sample, execute, store result, num rows, read, bind result, name, content, while read, fetch, you do stuff here. I mean, it's so nifty, and I know I keep saying that, but I made this tool so long ago. I'm so happy with it, just because this is what I direct people to if they're having trouble with their prepared queries. So if you have watched this video and it helped you, I'm so glad. But do check out this tool as well, because even if you know queries, you can still use this tool to save time. The bug here on the select here, if you skip out the bind param stuff, that should probably disappear. If bind param letters is blank, I need to update that. But right now, this is just a tool we made that we use and we allow all of our developers to use just to save time. But we also give it out to people online as well, because it is a pretty cool tool. Anyways, thanks so much, guys. I'm Will from nerdy.org, and obviously I'm affiliated with Woober. But please let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you liked the video, please just give it a thumbs up or subscribe. Thanks.